Alright, talking about some shit. Fuck it. Talk about some shit. Talk about some shit. YouTube and Meta held liable. They took 2 L's in 2 days. Hold on. Let me pull up a motherfucking video for y'all to listen to. Explain it in detail. Then we gonna talk about it. You feel me? Cause ain't nobody speaking on this shit. Yo, Grand Rising. Hope everybody have a blessed day. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. And this case and yesterday's verdict, obviously watershed, not really, let's be honest, Reed, for the dollar amount, $3 million, is a drop in the bucket for Meta and YouTube. And I can tell you they spent a lot more than $3 million defending this case. And the reason they did is the point that you've been making. It's for the precedential value, because now there are potential plaintiffs out there all over the country saying, I was affected by these products. I too could win a lawsuit of this nature, and incentivizes these companies to settle or to maybe change their tactics when they see their bottom line sort of coming into play here. The rule of thumb really is that the law catches up to society about 10 years later, and so I think we've all known for at least a decade that social media is not good for children, for their mental health, and the studies are bearing that out now. But now we're seeing it sort of trickle into the court system, and you're seeing novel new ways of trying to find liability. So the New Mexico case was a products liability case. This case was a different theory based on, like a negligent and unconscionable way to go about business practices. So there's a lot of new law being made. The question is, when will the legislature step in to regulate these companies? I think it's a a wonderful verdict and a wonderful precedent for people that are hopeful that maybe we can make changes. But it's going to take some time. So for a case, yes, these cases will be appealed. Meta, YouTube will fight this with every ounce of their being, because they don't want this precedent. But I think we will see some other fields and some other issues playing out in different realms.
Yeah, it's like a million legs, you know.
Yeah.
On a centipede. You know, one of those legs, of course, is about the functionality, the endless scrolling, but also, you know, we've had the conversation in the recent past about social media companies and whether they actually should moderate the content, have some sort of content protection. For instance, somebody gets doxxed on social media for whatever reason. That's content on their platform, hosting falsehoods about a person, a business, an organization. Do you think that these decisions could then open up a path where people could litigate relative to the content on these platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't an issue today, but certainly yesterday in the New Mexico case, what was at issue there, what the defense there was essentially there is a statute, a regulation indicating that platforms like these are responsible for the content that its users put out. So it plays into really a First Amendment right. But we saw really a breakdown of that statute yesterday in this verdict, because the jury ruled that they engaged in unconscionable practices in ignoring that content, right? They were aware that there were predators using their platforms to endanger children, and that they willfully ignored it. So today's verdict, again, not about that content, but about the way that this product is engineered. And it's knowingly, Reed, okay? It's not that they just turned a blind eye toward or didn't know about it. It's that they actively understood that, and they were taking advantage of young people's inexperience, their, sort of underdeveloped brains, and they're rewiring really that interplay. And so when you have these endless scroll features, they know that that's an addictive feature because they want to keep eyeballs on their product. So, I think, again, we're seeing a lot play out in this field. The legal sphere is catching up with sort of, the society at large in terms of what we're seeing based on a scientific level.
Okay, we're going to keep this shot up as we look at the television. Can we put that shot back up, guys, outside the courtroom? Caroline, aside from the decision here, the verdict from those jurors, as somebody who has worked very much behind these very fancy walls, give us an idea of what's going on with the jury, because we do have this live picture there. You do see a lot of cameras, and the viewing public may not know what is about to happen for this jury. We're going to see who they are. We're going to hear their reasoning, no?
It depends, Reed. So different jurisdictions, the judge can, instruct the jurors whichever way he or she wants, but ultimately it is each juror's independent decision whether or not to speak to reporters. As a defense attorney, I can tell you it is like gold to get a plaintiff to talk to you to see what really worked. I mean, I would be willing to bet that these companies put together mock trials and then interviewed those mock jurors to see what resonated with the jury. And so that is really, for sure, there are going to be more cases like this. And so if the defense and the prosecution can glean any information from those jurors, absolutely, they will want to get that information. And I would think that in a trial, of this substantial nature, that you would get at least some jurors willing to give interviews, willing to talk about, what their thought process is.
Whether they know it or not, they have nudged the needle and nudged the world a little bit with their decision. Once again, if you're just tuning in or watching live in the palm of your hand, Meta and YouTube found liable on all charges in that landmark social media addiction trial. Caroline Polisi, you make me smarter and walk taller whenever I'm with you. I appreciate you so much.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Goldman Sachs says that Elon Musk's new AI breakthrough could trigger an unprecedented market opportunity. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says what Elon and his team has achieved is singular. It's never been done before. And White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs says Elon is scaling this technology faster than anyone. But if you want to claim a stake in this AI game changer, you have to act fast. Elon predicts this breakthrough will come out within the first 3 months of 2026. Blink and you'll miss the boat entirely. So, do you want to know how to get started with this technology? Stick around for the next 60 seconds and I'll show you. Hi, my name is Louis Navalier. I'm a money manager and I've been investing since 1982. I've been featured in virtually every single major financial publication and TV show. The New York Times even called me an icon among growth investors. How do I accomplish all this? I'll tell you this. I don't come from money. My father was a stonemason, and I was the first person in my family to attend college. The secret to my success is that I have a knack for finding opportunities in disruptive technologies. I bought Amazon in 2004. I bought NVIDIA in 2005. I bought Netflix in 2009, just to name a few. Investments like that helped me grow my fund from $300,000 to $1 billion and go 14 years without a losing year. But I didn't just help the rich get richer. I also show everyday people how they can build generational wealth by investing in disruptive technologies. This is exactly what I want to tell you about today. The technology that just landed on my radar might be the
Breaking news out of Los Angeles. After 9 days of deliberations, a jury has found Meta and YouTube negligent in their design and responsible for causing harm to a teen
Negligent.
in a landmark decision.
That
The case
means
centers on a
y'all
20-year-old
don't know
woman's
what that
claim
means.
that her use of social media as a child addicted her to that technology. A jury agreeing, finding that both of those media giants liable, and awarding the plaintiff, who's known as KGM, $3 million in damages. The jury is now back deliberating to decide what, if any, punitive damages should also be awarded. Let's get right to NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris joins us as well. Both of them have been following this case really closely. Brian, I'll start with you. What ultimately did jurors decide here, and have we heard anything from either company, Meta or YouTube?
Yeah, well, what the jury decided here is that in the case of both YouTube and Meta, that they were negligent in the way that they designed their apps, that led to harm in this particular 20-year-old individual identified as Kaylee GM, and that they didn't warn enough. And for that reason, that also harmed this particular plaintiff. As you point out, this is a landmark trial because this could open up the floodgates for the over 1,500 other cases that are working their way through the legal system, with a jury here saying, yeah, these companies are liable and they do need to pay up. You wonder if all these other cases are going to lead to the similar outcome as well. I should point out that we did get statements from both companies in just the last few hours. Meta saying, quote, they respectfully disagree with the verdict and evaluating their legal options, whereas YouTube saying outright that they disagree with the verdict and that they plan to appeal, and they add that they don't see themselves as a social media site. So you imagine that in the appeal process that's going to come up. And again, this is starting the kind of like legal battle that could
This is on the internet. Hold on.
The jury.
Hold on. How the fuck y'all gonna say it's not a social media site? Nigga, we own this bitch being social, nigga. Y'all got whole fucking panels on YouTube now. People's engaging, bro. The fuck? Y'all sound dumb as hell, but I digress. I fucking digress. It's too early in the morning.
Both these companies negligent.
Yeah, it is significant, Misty. This is really a landmark case. 44 hours of deliberations before the jury came back with it. Are you surprised that it took that long?
Grapple with, because they had to treat both defendants as if it were two completely separate trials. So go through the analysis for Meta and YouTube. And as Brian pointed out, the defenses were a bit different for both. So they had to go through that verdict sheet and decide on liability. Then they had to decide on damage. Under the circumstances, which they in fact did.
Yeah. Oh, they did decide on the punitive damage?
We don't know the numbers.
Happening right now.
We know that the jury decided that the plaintiffs had gotten to that standard of whether or not the defendants acted with malice. So this is a really, really high level by clear and convincing evidence that the plaintiffs have to prove to be eligible for punitive damages. Okay. And they're rare. So this is really a tremendous consequence.
It's a punishment, essentially,
Correct.
Ryan, right? And we don't know what they'll do, but can we talk also about how this comes on the heels of another trial that was just decided yesterday?
Yeah, in New Mexico. And in that case, the verdict was that Meta, they were a singular defendant in that case, needed to pay $375 million in civil penalties to young teens and children in that state. Now, there were some differences between that New Mexico case and the Los Angeles case, most notably that in the New Mexico case, it was the state going after Meta, and they also alleged that there were not protections in place being provided by Instagram to stop young kids and children from being targeted by sexual predators on the app as well. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking $375 million in New Mexico, only $3 million in Los Angeles. But again, Los Angeles is about a single plaintiff.
Right.
That $375 million is just about children. And I should point out,
it's still goddamn long.
a separate hearing.
Now it's a regular blunt.
Long time from now in May, but that's going to be final claims for their.
That's what I'm left with from yesterday. You that a bitch?
This is not the final number that these companies are going to have to pay.
Yeah, that's
Although I
probably
should
that.
point out, these are
That was
companies with
regular
massive
blunt,
offers.
bro.
And I think
Shit,
that's
that's
actually
tough.
documents that we're hearing
It's
right
up.
now in this punitive stage of the LA trial as the plaintiff's attorney is trying to appeal against the jury for potentially more money.
Yeah, they've got a lot of money. That's just a fact. Misty, we may be out of time. Are we out of time? I'm so sorry. I could sit here with you guys.
We can talk about that.
Thank you both, Ryan Chung, Misty Maris. Appreciate you as always.
We thank you for watching. And
Born in Saint-Tropez in 1971, safe to say we grew up in the sun.
We're going to continue covering this breaking news that we have out of Los Angeles, California, where a jury has awarded $3 million to the plaintiffs who are suing YouTube and Meta over.
Good afternoon, I'm Meg Oliver. We continue with our breaking news coverage out of Los Angeles, where a jury found tech giants Meta and Google liable for failing to warn its users about the dangers of their social media platforms. The jury voted to award $3 million in damages, with Meta responsible for 70% of that and YouTube on the hook for the remaining 30%. The 6-week trial has featured high-profile witnesses, including Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta Platforms, Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, and Christos Goodrow, the vice president of engineering at YouTube. Jurors also heard from the lead plaintiff, a 20-year-old woman identified as KGM, along with her therapist, whistleblowers, and experts on social media addiction.
I need to go to therapy on this hoe.
YouTube at 6 and Instagram.
Y'all ass addicted.
By age 10, she was struggling.
Y'all need to go to rehab.
And self-harm. The landmark decision comes after
Nigga going to rehab for YouTube is crazy. I'm addicted to YouTube. I need rehab.
By failing to warn users about the dangers of these platforms.
Oh man, I'm addicted to YouTube. I need rehab. Rehab.
Bring in CBS News senior business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent, who joins us from our Los Angeles bureau. Thanks so much for being with us. I just want to start with, what was the reaction when the verdict was announced?
This is a major moment. I've started to hear from families all across the country who I've interviewed over the last 15 years, covering the impact of social media on children, young people, and families. And what we're starting to hear is a sense of hope mixed with relief and a sense of, okay, what's
Hold
next?
their ass accountable. Ain't nobody bigger than the motherfucking program.
Has found in Los Angeles. They found that Meta and YouTube are both liable on all charges.
Oh.
Yes. $3 million
Not some.
decided as the amount
Oh.
in damages to the plaintiff.
3 million. So imagine if everybody was to come together and
addicted to these products early on in her life. We have to remember that Meta is a multi-billion-dollar company. This is just a drop in the bucket. But what is the larger point here? This, along with the New Mexico
opens the door for them.
set precedent for the thousands of other cases underway across the country. Multiple other state attorneys general have brought similar cases against Meta, YouTube, Snap, the parent company of Snapchat. This decision and what ultimately comes against New Mexico are likely to have a major influence on how those cases proceed in the legal system. Now, what we know is that there was 8 days of deliberation here in Los Angeles before the jury was able to come to a decision. In New Mexico, it was a 7-week trial about child sexual exploitation on Meta's platforms, and that jury was able to come to a decision in just 1 day, less than 1 day. And so this is an inflection point after years and years of so many parents, young people themselves asking for the federal government, for example, Congress, to provide regulation of these tech giants. That has been a giant failure. At the state level, there has been some minor regulations passed by state legislatures, and yet still these problems persist when it comes to mental health. Meta says in response to the Los Angeles Superior Court case, this decision here, that they are evaluating their legal options right now, and they expect to have more to say as the punitive damages are assessed. But this is a powerful moment for any family who has children on social media, all of the victims who have been impacted by similar issues that KGM brought up in her case before LA Superior Court, Mag. Sterling, a powerful moment indeed. As you mentioned, it's not looking good for Meta. And as a parent with 3 teenagers at home, I know that everybody out there is asking the same question. How quickly do you think it is possible that this could force these companies to change how they operate? So the case in New Mexico, for example, in May, we expect a bench trial from that court as to determine what should happen or what will be demanded of Meta in terms of changes to their platform. But let's remember, Meta plans to appeal that case. Meta is also evaluating the legal options here in Los Angeles. And so many of the legal experts we've been talking to have said this is probably eventually headed in some consolidated form to the Supreme Court. You also have a major federal case in Oakland coming, a multi-district litigation, and that trial, I believe, is expected to start in June. And so when you put all of this together, plus all of the other court cases, changing these platforms will require a major heavy lift, and it will have to be specific in nature. And so it may very well end up at the highest court when it comes to any change that you or I or your team